All right, so today we're going to be talking about some of the functionality provided by our new software tool, our Fibersonics Milestone Viewer. It's a tool intended to integrate with Milestone VMS, which is a video management software. If you're not familiar with Milestone, it lets you keep track of a huge number of cameras, their status, you can see their feeds, that sort of thing. We're going to be covering some of the basics about Milestone, so if you're not super familiar, it's okay. Occasionally, I may also pull in a view of our server. So this is going to be showing sort of communication we have with the APU itself. And yeah, so just to give a rundown of what we're going to do today, I'm going to first run through some of the basics of Milestone so that you can see how it will actually integrate with our tool. I'm then going to run through some of the functionality of our tool and sort of what it provides and brings to the table. And then we're going to do a real actual physical test. So we have a test system set up. We're going to trigger a distance event somewhere along our cable, and we're going to see it come through and show in Milestone. Yeah, so let's jump into it. As you can see on screen here, I've got our test facility. I'm calling this military facility for now, and I've got a whole bunch of these zones. So these are called hot zones. Really, hot zones are a link to a smaller map, and that map can have sort of camera elements in it. And then the status of those camera elements will actually be percolated up through to the zone. So you can see if a camera is alarming in Eastgate, you'll see Eastgate sort of be blinking red or what have you, and you'll see that later today. So let's actually click into Eastgate. You can see I've got Eastgate camera. This is what a camera looks like in Milestone. And if I hover over this, you can see I get an actual live feed. So this is a real camera we have set up. It's nicely pointed at the bushes, and you can see that it's not recording, it's just filming. It's totally fine though. And so we'll come out. There's one other notable exception here that isn't really a camera, and that's APU status. And this is something that we've created to actually talk to our tool. So this is a dummy element, and we can, using this element, we can send alarms related to APU status to the Milestone screen. So backing out, that roughly covers the map. If you come down here, you'll see that we have a list of events. So we generally use events as a means of communicating various information. You can see we've got LL5MOS6 is online. That's the name of our APU. And so we can see that we successfully conveying some status already here. If you go back, you'll see we have different events from past testing, what have you. And then additionally, on the right side here, we have alarms. So alarms is a list of alarms, and alarms are a little bit more serious. So they need to be acknowledged by a guard, either by investigation or just actually clearing an alarm, right? So that you know it's not serious. Okay, and with that, I think we can probably pull on our Fibersonics Milestone Viewer. So what you'll first see on screen is a logon screen. So you will be authenticating against whatever Milestone server you have set up. And so we will cover most of that in the manual. It's not super complicated, but you will have to have this server running to connect. So let's go ahead and connect. And as you can see, we're first greeted with a camera view. So this is not too far off from the sort of camera control you saw when we were down in Eastgate. You can see if I come in here, I can select from a list of cameras that I have set up in the Milestone server. Let me select Eastgate camera, and you can see once again we have a view of our bushes, right? Additionally, you can start recording, you can stop recording, and yeah, I'd say it's a pretty nice to have, right? So next up we have alert data. So you can see that we've actually been receiving events from the APU. So really the APU's just been saying, hey, I'm okay, things are great, right? Additionally, stepping forward, we have APU status. So this really represents the APU watchdog from our Milestone viewer side. So you can see that I've already set up an APU. This corresponds to our real test APU, and you can see that the status is fine. So you can add APUs here, you can delete APUs here, you can edit. So say I had a differently named device, I could come in and just change it to that, or if I renamed it. Additionally, this is where you actually link up that APU status element that we saw earlier to an APU. So you'd come in, you'd select your APU status, you would see it listed here. In this case, I see APU status on screen, right? Select that. Oop, I actually unselected it. Let me keep that on there. And then I would come in and I would save this off, right? And lastly, I would consider this probably the bread and butter of our software is our segment configuration. And so you can see here a list of what we call segments, right? So conveniently, we have visually what look like similar segments on our map screen, right? So say we've got a segment first starting off from our APU called Eastgate, and this represents a barrier that is 100 meters in length and cable running along it that is, roughly 300 meters, right? we can say that if we receive a distance event within, let's say a 200-meter distance event, we can say that, okay, this has occurred within a segment, and we're going to trigger all the cameras within that segment, right? Or maybe we're going to send a distance event, right? This really speaks to the power of this. So you can see here I've got east gate 0 to 100 meters, and we've got a cable running along it that's about 300 meters. You can also see that I've got one camera assigned here. That's the camera we saw earlier, east gate camera, right? So if I come in and edit here, you can see I have all the functionality needed here to actually rename it. I can resize it. Say my barrier, say we extended it, I can come in and change that. And I can also come in and actually edit the cameras as needed. So say we added another camera, or there were multiple cameras in there, they could all be added and they would all be triggered should we receive an actual distance event in this segment. About this mapping here, so it may be the case that you're running significantly more cable along your barrier than the actual length of the barrier itself, right? So in this case, we map, say, an event that comes in at 200 meters along the cable to, I guess it'd roughly be 2/3, so 2/3 of the way along the barrier length, right? Okay, stepping back, you can see that I can also add segments here. So I've come in and I've added a generic segment. I can test segments, so that if I came in and hit a test alarm, that would actually trigger a distance event so about halfway along the length of the cable defined in this segment. I'm also free to sort, so I can sort by meters, I can sort by name, I can create a custom sort method and come in here and sort these as I want and save off the order. Very nice for actual usability here, right? Right, and I would say with that, we've covered a fair amount of the functionality, and so it might be time to actually do a real demonstration. So I've got this east gate section with a good camera setup and roughly expected to trigger if I receive a report from 0 to 300 meters. So I'm going to signal to my partner that I'd like him to actually trigger there. So let's let him do that real quick. Okay, and if I minimize Milestone Viewer, you can see that we received a series of events, roughly 43 meters from the start of the segment. So you can see it's actually come in and it's given me an interpolated value based on the cable assignments that we set up in Milestone Viewer. So 43 meters from the start of the segment into East Gate, I can see that the camera is actually alarming, and if I look at the feed, I can see that we're recording. So say this was a real disturbance along this barrier, we would have seen basically exactly where it occurred. I can also come in and see the East Gate camera alarm has activated and see the state of this. These represent alarms that need to actually be acknowledged. And so you can really see the power of this, right? With that, I'd say we should test the actual watchdog and maybe see the status of the APU reported back. So I'm going to come in and actually kill the APU. And I'm going to pull back up Milestone Viewer, and we can switch to the watchdog view. And pretty soon here, we should see the status of the APU actually go offline, and we'll see that status reflected on the milestone map, right? It takes roughly 20 to 30 seconds here, so it should be coming up pretty soon. Let me pull this off to the side so we can see. And you can see that my APU has gone offline. I've received an event saying the APU is offline, and I've actually received an alarm this time saying that a system error was encountered as we lost it during a live connection. You can also see now if I step into Milestone that the APU status zone has started blinking, and our APU status element has actually started blinking as well, as it's been alarmed and needs to be acknowledged. With that, thank you so much.